Hey, it's Neil, and this is a short video on how to test Apple sign-in on localhost by using Google Cloud Shell. This is something that immediately was frustrating to me when I went to go and try to build out the login stuff for our own application. And so the easy way for me to work around this is I already use Google Cloud Shell, and I was able to do it with that. And so with Google Cloud Shell, what it means is you're going to be developing on localhost, but in the cloud on Cloud Shell. Cloud Shell, Google Cloud Shell, has VS Code embedded in it. It's what's called the Cloud Shell editor. It's just VS Code. And it also gives you terminal access. And the problem here is that Apple sign-in doesn't allow you to add website URLs, domains and subdomains, or return URLs that are localhost. And I think they also, it also has to support HTTPS. So doing that on your localhost can be tricky. You have to do a lot of self-signed certificates, hosts edits, all that kind of stuff. Whereas with Google Cloud Shell, we can just run it and then use the URL. So I'm going to show you how to do that. So the first thing you want to do is just go to shell.cloud.google.com. The first time you do that, there's going to be just a terminal and an empty Cloud Shell editor and some information in the readme.txt that you should probably go ahead to set it up. Once you've got it set up, really you just using your terminal, git clone your repo, build using VS Code, however you build. This is a Go server, and then run your local host. So I have a debugger set up, but I'm going to show you running the local host, is as simple as, in our case, we just run the file. First I have to build it. Go build, run the file. That will listen on localhost. So in this case, Surfy Web, Surfy Go. So now I'm listening on localhost on 2312. And what you'll do is you go to Web Preview, and you'll notice I put a little environment variable in there. I'll talk about that in a second. And then change the port. So in this case, we're doing a very specific port. And then that will go to our web server. And you can see the URL that you get for Web Preview has this structure, CS, and then a number, and a region, and all that kind of stuff. And you can get that value just by looking at the web host environment variable in your Cloud Shell terminal. And the port then is prefixed to this with a dash. So in this case, since I'm looking at localhost 2312, I just go to localhost dash and then that value in HTTPS, and then and I can view my localhost web server. One caveat here is that you must visit that once, and that's because it will create a cookie for your authorization, and that cookie must be passed along to the web preview reverse proxy. And then the reverse proxy running on Google's front end will then direct the traffic down to your local host. But to you, it's all invisible. And then once you have that, you can go ahead and set those URLs, the web preview URLs, in your Apple sign-in configuration. So here I've got my configuration up, and I've added those Cloud Shell URLs both to the domains and subdomains and the return URLs. Finally, we test it. And so I have just a little test here that has my client ID, initializes the Apple auth with the pop-up, and that way it doesn't actually use the redirect URI, which would probably work, but we're trying to simplify things. And let's go ahead and run it. Log in Apple. You can see I've printed out the client ID and so forth. And there we have it. So I retrieved the code from Apple Sign-In, and I printed that out, and then I passed that into my web server, again, my localhost web server that's running on Cloud Shell. And then that, here's the debug spew on that, validated the token, and then I was able to log in and return the information from that. So there you have it. Again, this is really just to work around that Apple sign-in doesn't allow you to use localhost or non-HTTPS. You can do both of those things just using Google Cloud Shell and simulate your local environment in the cloud. So hopefully this helps you out.